president of the Tri-Cities chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. And just want to thank everyone, all of you, for coming. When Mary Ellen Miller pitched this idea of having this event, and as we started to progress through it, we were thinking, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we got 100 people? Well, that quickly, when people started RSVPing, it didn't take long to get to 100, and then all of a sudden we're at 140, 150, and it just blew us all away, and we were just so impressed by all of you for turning out for this event. Originally, this started off as Mary Ellen Miller pitched it, the Public Relations Society of America chapter. We said, hey, that sounds like a great idea, and there was initially a committee of 3 of us, and that was Mary Ellen, Rachel, Kane, and myself, who got things started. And then as things progressed, we sort of thought, well, let's expand the horizons. And so that's when we approached the local AdFed chapter and the local SBJ chapter about participating in this. And that turned out to be an absolutely wonderful decision, because while we were making progress, everything really escalated and progressed even further with the addition of the other committee members, who were Drew Beamer, Deborah Lowry, and Christian Schmidt. So this is just a wonderful opportunity for all of us as professionals. I think this just shows, sometimes you may not realize all the professionals, communications professionals there are in this region. And this just shows the vast array of professionals, and it's just wonderfully exciting to see all of us gathered here together. I'm really looking forward to this. We have a tremendous panel that's going to be presenting on this topic and discussing this topic. So, enough of the introduction. It's time now to turn this over to Mary Ellen Miller, who is going to moderate this event.
While you're applauding, I'd really appreciate it if you'd applaud those committee members that she just mentioned, those people that he just mentioned, sorry Jim, those people, Jim, Rachel, Deborah Lowry, Christian Schmidt, Drew Beamer, and then Sarah came on at the end there too, helping us. Could you please give them a round of applause for this? We also have some fantastic sponsors that are listed in your program, and I hope you'll be sure to thank them and appreciate them as well. I just can't thank you enough. As Jim said, this has been kind of a vision that's come to reality, and each of you being here shows the level of interest in our region for social media and communications, and seeing how professional communicators use these channels. So with that, what I'd like to do is start, by the way, throughout this course of this event, please tweet us under the hashtag SMAC13, and we'll be looking for those questions that we'll address from you during the last few minutes of the program. As far as the format goes, first I'm going to have them introduce themselves and the company that they work for, and then I will throw out one question that will be answered by each of the panelists. Then I have questions that will be directly targeted to each of the panelists in what they do. Okay, so with that, Becky, let's go ahead with you and say who you are, please.
My name is Becky Campbell. I'm with the Johnson City Press.
My name is Josh Smith. I'm with News Channel 11.
I'm Eric Vaughn with Wilmot Health System.
Rachel Kane, Eastman Chemical Company. And I'm Jennifer Clements with ETSU.
All right, let's welcome this panel. Thank you. You agree this is a very distinguished panel, and we're delighted to have each of you here. So with that, we'd like to head out with the opening question, which is, for each of the panelists, starting with Becky, how has social media changed the way that you do business?
Well, that's a really... Thank you, Josh.
He's used to that.
I was having a hard time hearing when I was way over there, so.
It's really changed almost everything I do and how I go about my daily activities. When I started in 1990 at the Kingsport Times News, there were no laptops, no personal computers, certainly no tablets, and cell phone usage was very limited. But I do almost, I would say 80 to 85% of my reporting on an iPad, taking pictures with my phone. It was just unheard of, obviously, 20 years ago. But the actual gathering of news is basically the same. It's just what you do with it after you get it. But it's changed how we interact. Times have changed how we interact with sources, with readers. We get so much more feedback from everyone, and it's also changed in how we promote what we do. As a reporter, a newspaper reporter, you don't usually didn't get involved in promoting what you do, but obviously on Twitter and Facebook, that's exactly what you're doing, to draw people to your news site and away from him. So it's really changed the whole atmosphere in the newsroom and out in the field.
Josh?
Becky? It has made me far less productive as an individual, I have to say, because I am now reading Facebook posts that have nothing to do with my job. And looking at what people are eating for dinner, Facebook food porn, and loving tweets. Just this morning, I read a David Cate tweet. Ladies and gentlemen, David Cate from the Kingsport Times News here, and he said, it never pays to hit reply all, and can I get an amen? So it has affected my business in that in a positive way. I could talk about that forever. I mean, what Becky said is so true. It's a whole new world, a new way to. I don't necessarily need to wait for somebody to plop their fanny in a chair and turn it to Channel 11. It's given me a way to get information out and to interact and get information in that we never had before. A big thing for me, Mary Ellen, and it has given, and you can identify with this as a news anchor, it has given me some control over me and my brand and who I am, whereas before I was completely, it was whatever my news director and general manager thought I would be and am, which was always great, but I get to have a little bit of influence over that through social media platforms. So it's given me more control.
That's very interesting. Okay, Eric, next.
The first thing I want to know is how I got the short straw going after the on-air personality. I'm not sure I've done in my life to deserve that. Along with these guys are talking about, we're talking about social media, and it's evolving quickly and it's changing day to day for everyone. And I would love to be able to sit up here and say healthcare is following suit, but we all know that healthcare is probably one of the more regulated industries in the nation. So I don't know that I can stand here and say that social media has had a pervasive impact on healthcare. It's a slow-moving organism, heavily regulated, and privacy is a huge deal. So from that perspective, the only thing I can do is talk about how we use that from a marketing perspective. And I think the advantage that we have from that outside of healthcare is it's allowed us as an organization to compete with people like the newspapers and the TV stations and that sort of thing, in that we can focus on developing audiences. So what we have now, we intentionally used to we had to rely on traditional methods where we relied on someone else to provide a user base or readership and that sort of thing. And what we've been able to do is cultivate that on our own. And we have numbers that rival small community hospitals and those sort of things. So that's the important part here, is it's just a different way to look at how we can cultivate and build those audiences.
Rachel.
Sure. So I was hired about 2 years ago to launch and maintain the digital strategy and social media strategy for Perennial Wood, which is Eastman's, at the time it was Eastman's first direct-to-consumer brand. So this is, and now I'm one of 2 people at Eastman who do what I do. So for Eastman, it's a game changer. It's definitely new. I'm probably one of the first people at the company doing this, and it shows the value that we value as a Fortune 500 company, social media, and I think it's huge. It's only going to grow.
And how about at the university, Jennifer?
I would say for the university, from that standpoint, it's been a great tool for us. Not only does it allow us to interact and engage with our students, our faculty, our staff, and also the community at large, but it also allows us the opportunity to share knowledge. ETSU has an iTunes University account and YouTube accounts, which we are able to post different classes and things that are recorded, so the outside world can see what our faculty and staff are doing on campus, which is a really great thing to share that knowledge with our community. But more than anything, it's really helping us to engage with everybody on campus, helping us to share what we're doing on campus with the community, and then also helping us to find areas in which our students and faculty and staff can be engaged with the community too.
Thank you. And I'm being asked for all the panelists to please be sure to direct the mic towards your speaking voice when you're talking, just to make sure that the folks on the outer edges can hear. Becky, let's go with you with the first question aimed at newspaper readers. What are the benefits of social media for readers and for the newspaper?
Well, for the newspaper, it gives us a better opportunity to be more competitive, I think, in getting news out. Years ago, we could only tell you about something that happened today in the morning, tomorrow morning. Now we can tell you as it's happening. It gives us a better competition field with TV, with radio. We can interact with readers on a more friendly level. Instead of phone calls, I email people, or I Facebook friend people, messages on Twitter, and it gives the readers obviously access to news immediately, and can really be a benefit if someone sees a post on Facebook and they have some information about it, they can very quickly get that information to me, and I can solicit information about a case or about a story, anything that's happening, which is obviously something we couldn't do before.
Thank you. Josh, how has social media played into our immediate desire for news, which is kind of what Becky was just touching on there?
Well, I immediately desire Becky's tweets from court when she's in trial.
I'm glad you mentioned those.
I love those. I mean, I want to know, what the jerk who was accused of the crime did, and I don't have to wait because I'm following Campbell in court.
Wasn't she one of the very first? Weren't you one of the very first, if not the first?
I believe so. My first interaction with Twitter came in 2010 during the Howard Hawk Willis trial. And for those of you who don't know, he cut up 2 kids and threw them in a plastic bin. Anyway, and that was a very last minute decision. We decided on Friday, and the trial started Monday, that I was going to tweet the trial. So we had to get me set up on Twitter and have some kind of logistical plan, which we actually didn't have, but it all worked out. So, I do a play-by-play, and I was the as far as I know, the only reporter doing that. Since then, TV has also started doing some of that. Yes, they do that often.
Okay, Josh, you get the follow-up now.
Yeah.
Well, and what I loved about that is, journalistically, the judges and courts are so restrictive on what they would let into the courtroom. A still camera? No. Maybe, I don't know, video camera if you fill out the paperwork and the judge is in a good mood. But there she is back in the courtroom tweeting, and nobody can stop her. And I
never asked permission.
You never asked permission. Becky, that's so true. Sometimes forgiveness, right? What was the question? I'm so sorry, Marianne.
The question was how social media has played a role in our immediate desire for news.
I guess, it was always there. It's just meeting that need, I believe, for our viewers who don't want to wait for the 6 o'clock news or the morning paper. We all know this. That's why the web is what the web is. Social media just takes it a step further. I think it's also accelerated. I find our viewers are far less patient than they ever were. They want to know it now, and they want you to have all the answers now, and we oftentimes don't. So I think that is the plus that has turned into 2013. The big challenge for us is now meeting the new high expectations. If you hop on I-26 tonight and there's a backup on traffic, you're going to pull out your phone and you're going to start looking at what's going on, you know, and when we have no clue what's going on, because it happened at, 4:58 when we're all trying to go into the studio and be on the air, you're going, where is it? And then we start getting the direct tweets and the Facebook posts. What's happening? So people want news. They always have wanted information. That's what's driven all of us to where we are in our different jobs. I think now we're going to have to try to keep up with the demands of our audience.
Thank you, Josh. And if all the panelists besides Josh, who of course puts the mic right up to his mouth and is great at that, but if the others could be sure to direct the mic towards your mouth so that everybody could hear you. Eric, how is healthcare unique when it comes to social media?
Okay, I've been shown up by Josh again with the mic. This is getting personal.
Get uncomfortably close to it.
So I'm under the assumption that everyone's here for the same core purposes. Is what we're looking to do is take advantage of a culture that revolves around communicating personally through impersonal methods. And who we deal in healthcare. We deal with people in those moments, those most personal moments. So who's better suited than us to interact with those people at those times? The issue that we face is because of regulations, it's pretty clear we can't do that. We can't cross any lines that would point to any type of personal information. So as awesome as Facebook stalking is and figuring out what's going on in the world, we know information about our patients. We just can't acknowledge that. So the issue we face is then what do we do with that information and how do we engage at a level that doesn't create potentially millions of dollars in fines in the process? It's daunting at times to be able to do that. So what we have done is develop specific processes so that we can either engage in people in a limited way or direct them to an avenue where we can potentially do that. So offline, we have several things that we do. We essentially follow what we do inside the hospitals and direct them to hotlines or emails and that sort of thing, get them to administrators. Was that for me?
Time's up.
So I think that's the deal, is you have to make sure in healthcare, we have to make sure there is no gray area. People get fired for passing along this information, and there are huge implications and ramifications for this, and that's what we face every day.
Thank you, Eric. Rachel, how do you measure ROI? This is a question that is often asked. How do you measure return on investment for social media?
This is what everybody's in this room for, probably. So really, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to metrics for social media. But I can say that if you are on social media, you should definitely have a strategy. And if you have a strategy, it should be at least easier with a strategy to start measuring some of your tactics. So when I put together a strategy for Perennial Wood, I make sure that every single thing we do is measurable. For a direct-to-consumer product, brand like we are, we measure leads that we've generated. We measure how many of those leads are qualified. We follow those leads directly from social media all the way through to sales. And so while right now I can't tell you exactly how valuable a like is in about a year, I'm hoping I will be able to. So, I think it's just really important to be able to look at those things when you put maybe a strategy in place. How are you going to measure things? The ROI for social media is similar to that of a billboard. If you're talking about brand awareness, I mean, you drive by a billboard, maybe a billboard's going to get 1 million impressions in its lifetime. And if someone's driving down the road, he or she is going to see the billboard and they're going to say, okay, well, Heavenly Ham, this Thanksgiving, I think I'm going to do a Heavenly Ham for Thanksgiving. And they go home, they Google Heavenly Ham, then they call Heavenly Ham and order it. And there's a huge plug for Heavenly Ham. So, but in all honesty, if they were going to try to find out the source of that lead, it was really maybe a billboard, and that's almost impossible to track. So that's really what we're dealt with in social media, is trying to track something that's almost impossible. So I say all that to say, as many things as you can track for brand awareness, your web traffic, how many people go from social media to your website, if it's an e-commerce site. If you can see that people go from social media all the way to your website and then they converted on your site, that gives you strong numbers. brand awareness is web traffic. And then there's also the other stuff that's just kind of in the abyss, and you don't really know exactly how you can track it. But having something solid to start tracking in an Excel sheet is good first step.
I just want to add in on that. Rachel and I worked together a few years back, and we reported a level of metrics that no one ever wants to have to do in their life. But the key to that is making sure that the C-suite level folks know and understand that, because I can almost assure you, I hope there aren't a lot of CEOs in the house, but this is magic to them. Okay, so unless you can give these numbers directly to those folks, we're essentially just magicians in their eyes.
Follow up to either Eric or Rachel from David Cade out in the audience. I am looking at these SMAC 13 questions, so feel free to tweet away. David asks, what are the measurements for ROI with social media, and how do you monitor abuses? Eric or Rachel, who wants to take that?
I'll take it. You want to take it? I'll take that. So, we monitor and measure everything. There are free monitoring software. I mean, I realize that not every small business or local business is going to have the bandwidth or the resources to monitor on a level that we might, but I use Radian 6, TalkWalker, Mention, Google Alerts, all the free stuff that I can get, and still things slip through, so monitoring is very, very important, but all those that I mentioned definitely are what I use. Hootsuite, quite a few other ones.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just jump in too. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are using PR software and that sort of thing. So most applications now are developing some sort of tracking mechanism. The deal is to set those up and make sure you monitor and make sure you communicate those. And I think I'm going to try and tee it up down here. Is I think there's a specific question even for ETSU about some of the ways that they kind of measure and monitor and that sort of thing.
And that's a great segue to Jennifer. Jennifer, what are the challenges involved in managing social media for a university?
I really think probably the hardest thing or the biggest challenge that we have is really managing our brand. We have a lot of students that are using our social media. We have a lot of faculty and staff, and so when you have 15,000 students and 2,000 employees at ETSU, of course there are going to be some things that happen at the university that are a little challenging. And so, watching that on social media and trying to, I think, respond to those issues or things that are brought up or people are focusing on social media, I think are important for us to do. Social media gives us the opportunity to listen to what's going on campus, and it gives us the opportunity to respond on campus. And I think that, it's not like if somebody puts out a Facebook post that's something negative about the university, I can't just go out there and just delete it because that's freedom of speech. And, social media is freedom of speech. And so trying to figure out how to connect with the audience and really figure out, how to communicate with them and try to maybe explain the situation to them. For instance, if something's happened and they're looking for help for something, we found social media great to use as a great tool to connect with these students and help them to find the individuals on campus that they need to be speaking with to make changes or to sign up for things or things like that. And so I think, with doing that, we're hoping to build our brand, that we're trying to help students, and that's a big part of our brand, that we want to be there. We want to be there to support our students and help them to be successful. And so, we try to turn that challenge more into the positive thing. But unfortunately, sometimes challenging things arise, and we just kind of have to take them by case basis.
Okay, thank you. Becky, what are some of the challenges that you've faced as social media has become more prevalent in the business world?
Having time to get it out there. Sometimes I'm gathering news. I'm at the courthouse. I'm pulling case files, or I'm at a crime scene or some kind of scene, breaking news, and it's having I've got to stop what I'm doing right here, looking and gathering information, and I've got to get a tweet out. And sometimes it's just difficult to balance it, and because, as Josh was saying earlier, the desire for immediate news has always been there, we think, and now we're able to fulfill that but sometimes even that doesn't seem enough for readers and listeners, I think. So it's just a matter of balancing the new way of doing things and retraining ourselves to do that. I'm what I call an old school journalist. I've been in the business 23 years, and I'd much rather have a pen and a notepad. But that's really not how I do my job these days. You know, I'm walking around with an iPad doing video, and you know, then transcribing from a video to do my story. So it's just a balancing act.
There's a question from Dr. King in the audience that I think, well, any of you could answer, but since you're the person in court, Campbell in court, tweeting, perhaps you'd like to address it first, and that is to please discuss examples of how you've used Twitter for strategic purposes and the outcome.
Well, I mean, I guess one strategy we have is to drive people to our website and have people be more familiar with our brand. And as you know, Twitter only allows you 140 characters, so what we do now actually is I do updates on the website, and then I'll do a short tweet to get people back to our website. And that's it's about driving traffic and seeing the numbers.
Would any of the other panelists like to address that question as far as a Twitter strategy?
I'd love to talk greater than Twitter as possible. I mean, it ties back to what David Cate's question is. It's not unlike traditional marketing and advertising. So we wouldn't create a newspaper ad without some sort of call to action at the end. We wouldn't have a broadcast without our logo on, the station logo on there. So oftentimes people don't treat social media the same way. And it goes back to, if you're going to measure something, you have to have a goal in mind. You have to have a strategy behind that. So not unlike what you would do in traditional methods, you need to have those solutions in place specifically for Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and all those types of things, because you're talking to a different audience. They're going to interact in a different way. So I don't know that there is a solution that you should do. You should just follow the same principles and apply those specifically to the audience you're looking for. If you don't have a goal, then you're really not accomplishing anything, and you have nothing to go to an executive or a director or a manager to be able to report your value. You have to have something specific that you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, we are just using these things personally, and that's not really providing value to our businesses.
Thank you. Josh, there's a question from the audience that actually is a question we had pre-planned. I'll read it the way Robert Andrew Dunn has asked it, and that is, how do you all separate your professional lives from your private lives on social media, and do your organizations have codes of ethics for social media? Josh?
How do we separate our personal from our professional, and then do we have a code of ethics? Ooh. Well, I have struggled with that a lot, because social media for me is two things. It's the television station, it's representing my job, but it's me, and it's my personal brand of who I am. Does that sound? Is that something? So I have found that viewers would like to know a bit about me if they're going to trust me to give them the information. So I try to include a little bit of my personal life, but I have struggled with knowing where that stops. I have worked with colleagues in the business who take pictures inside their home. They put their children's picture on their Facebook page. I haven't felt comfortable with that yet. I don't know why. I don't have any past reason to feel uncomfortable about it. But I just haven't felt like that was a part of my personal life that needed to be there for my brand. So it's a struggle for me, and I would think it would be a struggle if your social media presence represented your business. I mean, to what extent do your employees feel comfortable being portrayed in a photograph in a post? You know, some of them, I've learned this, some of my coworkers are going through very difficult personal times. They don't want a significant other in a fractured relationship to know where they are or what they're wearing. Well, I didn't think about that at first, but I was confronted about it once from a coworker who said, I would appreciate it if if you wouldn't mention my name in this back channel thing we do, which is constantly streaming even during commercial breaks, and she shared with me something personal that was incredibly sensitive, and I thought, I didn't even think about that. So I think if you have a social media presence and it involves someone other than just you or a product or whatever, you have to be incredibly vigilant about the people you're involving in that social media platform. And gosh, that's a real balance for me that I haven't struck yet. I think some of my viewers know I have 3 children, and some of them have asked for photographs of my kids, and I haven't yet done that. So that's kind of, for me, the big line. They've seen my dog, and that gets lots of likes for some reason. He's really not a very pretty dog, but the other thing about a code of ethics, I honestly would have to say, we also have to, in my line of work and in yours too, we know that there is a code of ethics, we have to be careful of it. I think it applies to social media, but there has been no stated. So you don't get angry in social media. You don't respond angrily. That can cause you to lose your job, and that has happened in this market. That would be the main code of ethics, I would have to say.
Great points.
I just want to jump in because this is a really big deal to me because people get fired over this issue. Okay, everybody's talking about reporting and that sort of thing, and that's our obligation. But people who are down on the line, say floor staff or just your everyday people, their indiscretions can lead to you're gone. Next day you come in that morning, you left and you repeated something in anger, and you're fired. The lines are there. So what we've done is we've proactively gone out as we started monitoring. We've gone out and presented to employees. We've presented to leaders to make it very clear. We do have policies in place. So we have policies in place that keep people from using their personal devices while they're working at all. Luckily, that covers us. So what happens there is the groundwork is in place to be able to monitor and watch that sort of thing, so that when we do report that, when you have somebody who shows up for work and they're bored that day, and it was my goal today to work this in, when they're on the shift and they're using their phone and they're taking selfies, okay, then there are processes in place. Everyone has to have processes in place that account for that, and that's no different because it's online than traditional things. So if you're sleeping out in the back and wasting your time there, there are implications to that, and the same thing applies online. So you just have to make sure you apply those same principles, policies. They are in place to protect people like that.
Rachel and Jennifer, I saw a lot of head nodding down there. Would you, Jennifer, especially you were nodding. Go ahead.
I'd say for me, tweeting and doing Facebook stuff for ETSU, it's really hard for me because ETSU, my work is my life, and so I'm doing it constantly. I have a hard time tweeting for myself and doing stuff on Facebook for myself because I've done it all day long, and I wake up and I look at my phone and monitor what's going on about ETSU and go to bed. It's just 24/7. And so for me, it's almost like Facebook and Twitter for myself is work. And so so personally, I don't do a lot of tweeting. I don't do a lot of Facebooking. But the other reason is because if I did, it probably would be about ETSU. So, so for me, it's difficult. It's a difficult line to draw, and I do the best that I can. And I enjoy doing this stuff for ETSU, so I mainly put all my effort into that.
Rachel, did you want to add anything about personal brand versus the brand you represent?
Well, I've never been able to separate the two. When I started working in digital media and social media, I knew that my personal Facebook would always be professional for me. And I do add photos and things like that of my family and maybe trips, but very, very few, not very often. And I cannot really separate the two. I do Facebook and Twitter for multiple organizations, even nonprofits, and then definitely my company. So I'm with Jennifer, it's really hard to unplug. And if you do this all day long, and we even monitor on nights and weekends for our brand as well, and it is very difficult to kind of separate the two. But I've always just kept my code of ethics is that, everything's professional for me, even if it's personal.
Becky?
Well, the other panelists didn't really say, and I'm not sure what how they do this, but I actually have I have 3 Facebook presence. I have my personal profile, I have a professional profile, and now I have the fan page. And all that came about in a convoluted way. I had the personal Facebook first, and then I started getting friend requests from sources, cops, lawyers, that kind of thing. And that's okay. And some of them are actually I consider friends. But there's certain things in my life that I just don't really want those people to know about. So I created the professional profile, and then we had to create our fan page. So I have both of those still, and I'm trying to convert everything over to the fan page. It's just too much trouble. People keep asking me to be friends, and but yeah, I'm your friend. But yeah, it is difficult, and I'm very careful about actually what I've done on my personal page is I've completely blocked the privacy. I've got all the privacy at the highest level, so people actually supposedly can't find me. That's my plan anyway. So it's because I don't want, there's certain, and I have had, and even in this year recently, have had threats from, and this has happened over the years, readers, victims' families, defendants' families. People were really upset that I've ruined their life, because that's what I do. And so they've threatened me, and I know where your family lives. Well, they don't, because I'm not even from Tennessee. So I just try to be very vigilant about keeping those separate and not letting people find me, if that's possible. And it's become harder as social media has taken a huge role in what I do, because I walked into my bank a few months ago and, you work at the Johnson City Press. Yeah, how'd you know that? But my face is everywhere now. And it used to be that newspaper reporters could be so on the down low and not have to, nobody knew who we were. And so we didn't, and it's not that I tried to, mask who I was, because that's unethical to pretend you're not who you are. But you didn't get noticed everywhere you went. So that was always a good thing. Those days are gone.
That is a very interesting point, the lack of anonymity for a profession that once was quite anonymous.
It was.
Yes. There was a question from the audience, and I love it, from Samara. Is it professionally acceptable to be tweeting from this conference? Absolutely, please do. We're Smack 13, tweet away. Send those. I see David sending the Instagram photos. That's great. Thank you, David Ford. So it's wonderful. Thanks for all the participation online and here with this fantastic panel. Eric, let's address this one in the interesting case of healthcare. Given the challenges facing healthcare organizations, how can an organization facing similar restrictions, which I know a lot of organizations do, take advantage of available information?
I think it's a great question. It's important to me that we do. I said it's magical to most people, and I think it's important for us as a panel and everyone in this group to make sure we paint a picture to the appropriate folks that it's not magic, that there is a science behind it and there's methods behind it. So one of the first things I would do is make sure that you're focusing on your business strategy. No matter what that is, your social media should support that. If it's not supporting the business strategy, then you're essentially just off working on your own using kind of a new gadget, and it doesn't necessarily provide value to that. And then the other thing is just make sure you clearly, figure out what you can and can't do. We're to the point where social media, Facebook pages, and those types of things are the easy answers. You would be surprised to hear me say that I don't know that everyone in here must have a Facebook page. What you do need to know is where your audience is and who you're trying to talk to. I'll gamble that that audience, that segmentation is on Facebook, but if you find that's true, then don't try and present that to a CEO as part of your strategies because you think it's new and cool. You have to make sure that you're focused on things that are going to provide value in the midst of that. So positive comments can often stand for themselves. In our case, negative comments are the things that we have to figure out a way to address to show a level of responsiveness and service recovery and that sort of thing, so that we can get people calmed down, so to speak, because we are we're interacting with them in a very, very personal moment, oftentimes at their weakest, and people can react to that. So you just have to decide ahead of time and give some thought into as to what your overall goals are. In the end, what can you report as a success, and that should apply across across all channels to me.
That leads right to my question with Rachel. Rachel, how do you form a strategy for digital media? We've talked a lot about strategies here today. How do you actually form that?
Sure. To Eric's point about, following your audience, it's really important, in my opinion, to be able and willing to fail at any given thing in social media or digital media, because a lot of it is we're first timing for a lot of different things. And if you set this huge, very high expectation and don't allow yourself some wiggle room, it could be devastating. So we absolutely started out on different platforms with Perennial Wood, and there are some that just didn't work for us and that we're not going to pursue. So we have to be willing to accept that maybe we invested a little bit of money into one thing, and maybe that didn't work, but that lesson for next year is absolutely invaluable. So at least, tracking lessons learned is really important. As far as the strategy is concerned, I'm gonna piggyback off what Eric said again, is, strategy for social media is all about content. It's about, what you're saying and to whom and where they are. And, you might say something different on Twitter than you would on Facebook, because you do have to know your audience and you have to know what they're looking for on different platforms. Absolutely, definitely has to mirror your business strategy. If you don't know what your marketing strategy is, that should support your business strategy. That's really where you should begin. For specific objectives for any kind of strategy, you should look at what your competitors are doing. What are they good at? What are they not good at? What is your opportunity? What's your window? What could you do better? Is there a place that you can play that maybe they haven't thought of yet? And then also set goals, at least hypothesize. And that's really important, because it may be the first time that you've done something and you may not know how successful it's going to be. So at least if you could, set some type of a goal, it's really important. So everything in my strategy ties right back to the business, its objectives, and I have a goal or at least a hypothesis of what I think will happen. Sometimes that doesn't happen and we've got to review and adjust, but being able to review and adjust is 100% important. Another thing too, and I'll get off the soapbox, but really, I always say you can't, if you're doing social media as a profession, you can't go into work every day and think, what am I going to tweet today? What am I going to put up on Facebook today? And this is a virtual world. It happens very quickly, day to day. We may have things that we want to quote unquote report on or add to our social media channels that happen day to day, and we have to account for those. But really having a solid editorial calendar and having a plan for your content is crucial.
Can I jump in? I think it's significant that there was a strategy to have a strategy at your company, because I think a lot of businesses I'm finding don't even have it in their strategy to have a person who is going to manage your social media strategy. Now, there's just one Eastman right around here, so not everybody can do that, but I would think, and it's a question really, don't you think every organization should include in their strategy that somebody is going to be in charge of this? And not a lot of people are there, at least I'm finding that that's not the case. I happen to know ETSU only recently, with the help of Jennifer, got there. Acknowledging organizationally, we got to get a handle on this.
That's perfect. It's going to lead me to my question to Jennifer, but before I do that, I realize that some people, although it would be hard to believe looking at you all, but there probably are some people that aren't on Twitter in the crowd, and we welcome you and we're glad you're here. And if you do have questions, please pass them up here to Chrissy, and she's going to pass them to me, and then I can get those the old-fashioned way via paper. That's absolutely fine. But I want to make sure that everyone feels that they have a chance to be heard and their questions to be heard as we can in the short space of time we have. But we just led into Jennifer and the fact that, Jennifer, I'd really like to toss out the question about how ETSU handles emergencies, because that really ties to a strategy, and I'm sure it's part of your overall strategy.
Well, just to touch really quickly on what Josh was saying, ETSU just recently put the social media really in one person's hands. We have two people that manage, or that are the admins for our Twitter and Facebook accounts, but before that we had probably 20 admins across the board that were managing just the ETSU Facebook and Twitter accounts. And so therefore that kind of goes back to the strategy of how do you have a strategy when you have 20 some people contributing whatever is going on. And so by having one person in charge of the social media and working with the other admins, it makes it easier for us to figure out what kind of messages do we want to be putting out, and where do we want to focus our efforts through social media. So just to kind of tie into that. As far as emergencies go, as ETSU, we have so many people on campus, and so with all the different things that are going on around the country at all the different campuses across the country, emergencies are something we really have to be very cautious about and be very aware about. When emergency happens, our students and faculty and staff turn to social media a lot of times to figure out what's going on. We have alerts that students can sign up to receive text, Facebook, Twitter. It goes out through all different mediums to our students and faculty and staff, but it's hard because you want that instant, hey, what's going on? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And you want that, but you want that constant update every couple seconds. I mean, how many times has something happened and you're sitting there and you're updating what's going on, and you're not getting that response? I recently attended a social media conference for higher ed, and we talked about emergencies and how universities handle emergencies. And the one thing that we are really trying to move towards for ETSU is that when we do have an emergency that happens on campus, getting the information out. And unfortunately, a lot of times, we don't have all of the facts right that second. And so one thing that we are trying to do in the future, if things do arise, is to make sure that we're giving out information not as we receive it, but just even if we don't have information, just putting out there, here's what we know, and this is what we know at this point. And so just continually updating on an instant, just as instant as possible, because that's where our students are, and our students are wanting that instant response. So emergencies are really hard. One thing that we do is that we try to have a couple of messages crafted for incidents, so that if something does arise, that we are able to spit something out really quickly just to say, hey, this did happen. As soon as we have more details, we'll let you know. So that's one thing that we've tried to do, and it's just something we as a university are not perfect at, but we are trying, and we are aware, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we can be better about emergencies.
Fantastic. This is a question from the audience. Ryan out there, thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting question. Becky, you might want to jump in just because you haven't talked in a little while. And that is that social media is also about listening, that there's a lot of people out there broadcasting, but what about the listening aspect of it?
Well, that is important. We need to listen to our readers to gauge how we're doing and to see what people want to see and read. We've always had people complain about all the crime news that's in the newspaper and all the bad stuff. Well, social media actually gave us some ammunition to say, hey, this is what you're reading. Those are the stories that get the hits, that go viral. But still, we do need to listen to readers. Their input is important. We're their newspaper, and it's a good thing that it's something that I think we tend to forget easily. Josh?
Well, we're not great at listening yet. We're great at blabbing, and that's why most of us got in the business I'm in. But a great example of the cost of not listening for us came recently. Are you familiar with this terrible story that happened in Ohio of this man who imprisoned these 3 women for a decade? That's just been all over the place. And so it was a national news story, and I was in there in the evening. One of my responsibilities is to keep up to date with what's happening with our JHL Twitter and Facebook, and also my personal one. And that night, I just was not paying attention. And the next morning, I wake up, and raise your hand if you don't grab your phone first thing. I do. And I looked at it, and I'm seeing this string of emails from my colleagues who say, and it goes back to our morning news anchor who looked at the page. She's more on the ball than I did, and realized that someone had posted on the JHL page that one of the young women had family who lives in Elizabethton. And that was posted early in the previous evening, and I didn't look at it. I didn't listen. And it could have been in our evening broadcast. I'm happy to say we still were able to get it before anybody else, but I didn't listen. And it was there. So I have been freshly convicted to be not just posting, not just pushing, not just getting it out, but creating opportunities for people to talk to us, creating opportunities, and then once they do, to look at it and really process it. And some of them are, I hate you're old, fat, and bald, and you just throw those away. You print them out and take them to your shrink, and you live with it. And then the ones that are truly people, like Becky said, that want to be a part of the process with you. They're thrilled that you're opening it up and it's a two-way street. Golly gee, don't pass up on the opportunity to take advantage of that.
We've got some more great questions from the audience. I want to go ahead and address this one. Eric, Rachel, Jennifer, whoever wants to go first on this one. Members of the audience are hearing you say that there are now social media job openings, that this is kind of a trend in a career. Tell us more about what kind of positions will be opening up and how we need to approach social media in job hunting. Eric, you want to lead that one?
For the record, I did not say Wellmont Health System was hiring people specifically for social media. We've got someone in the crowd right now who does a great job of that. But I want to be clear at that she has many other responsibilities in addition to that. So she comes in every morning, tries to filter out all this information that comes in, but she also produces a lot of other material. So I would love to see trends point to that. I had a conversation recently with our CMIO, and he said he would support that, but I'm hoping I didn't imply that we're hiring in that regard. Bail me out here.
I would just say ETSU right now is not hiring anybody either for social media. As much as I'd love to hire somebody else to help with it, that'd be great. As far as jobs and everything and applying for jobs, I would say probably in doing a lot of interviews across campus for marketing things on ETSU's campus, the one thing I noticed is when people apply for jobs that include, like one of the tasks is managing the social media, people put, oh, I have a Facebook account or I have a Twitter account. And they're not really good about telling like how they use those. And so if you are applying for social media jobs or anything, something I would suggest is really explaining how you're able to use Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're using to really build your brand. Because personally that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that is able to tell me how they were able to build a brand for themselves or for their company or whatever they're doing. But then, also talking about the tools that are used to measure your ROI and stuff like that. So if you're applying for jobs, those are the things I think are important to make sure that you include, not just that you're on Facebook.
Rachel, I'm going to ask you another question from the audience. And even though you work for a large company, you mentioned that you work for small nonprofits and things like that as well. So I think you can answer this question very ably. And it is, how do you sell the importance of adding social media to your marketing plan if you're a small company?
Well, it's actually pretty easy to answer really when I think about it, because I don't know that any business can afford not to be on social media anymore. And small or large, even if it's the owner of the business who is posting or tweeting about his or her business, and it might be a business on Main Street, and you want to tell your customers when you're going to be open that day. You're going to be opening late. There was a business in downtown Kingsport that was one of the first businesses I ever saw that really did social media really well. And she did it all on her own, and she was just a one person shop, but she would put on there when she was going to be open, if she was running late that day, if she was going to be offering a discount, if she was going to be staying late. So I think no matter how small or big your organization is, it's important to do it and find a way to at least work it in to your schedule. Like I said, even if you're the CEO.
Great.
I just want to add in too is even if you don't have all those strategies in place, you create that presence. But there some of the most sophisticated marketing tools are available through Facebook, and it's very, very efficient. So if you're a small business, create that page, start on that journey that Rachel said. Don't be afraid to mess up along the way. But there are very, very efficient ways to spend your dollars to start building that audience. So make sure you're looking at that availability.
We'll use this as kind of a wrap-up question from the audience from Takai. How many people in your organizations actually produce and contribute content? And I'll throw that wide open to you guys. Who wants to do that first? How many are contributing and producing content?
As far as the newsroom is concerned, everyone. Every person in our newsroom has a Facebook. Every person in our newsroom has a Twitter. Now, how often those get used by everyone is still to be seen, but it's the idea is we're promoting the Johnson City Press, and I post stories that everybody writes. I started out posting only things I write because that's how I roll. But no, I post everyone's stories as often as I can, and it's what Josh was saying about not listening. When people respond to those posts and you don't.
That's all right. Yeah.
So, but everyone in our newsroom is expected to contribute to that.
Right, and that really gets back to the listening thing that we talked about, that you're expected to be listening. Josh?
We all have Twitter accounts, so we all have Facebook pages. I think the key organizationally needs to be how many people are on board pushing to the central brand. And for us, that's the struggle. There are probably about 7 or 8 of us who are really actively contributing to the WJHL social media platforms. A couple of real leaders and then others who are contributors. I think it would be worthwhile, it was worthwhile in our organization to get everybody together and say, listen, here's what you're going to do, here's some great style techniques, here's some great ideas. Our social media manager told us, she said, if you're going to post on our page, I want a photo. Preferably, I want a web link. Do not post something that does not have one or the other. And we were like, what? And she said, you can track it. People respond when they have something to see or something that they can use. Just a few lines, a social media post does not make. So we have, to answer your question, a few key leaders, and they help a bigger and broader team stay on task.
Eric?
I think we probably in total have, I'm going to guess, anywhere between 25 and 30 different channels that we use, whether that be through support groups, multiple pages managed through Wellmont, and then other channels as well. Essentially, what we do is we have people who funnel in the messaging or the overall strategy, and we really have one person who creates that content, manages their calendar for probably 15 or more of those social media outlets. And then we have a handful of other people who are kind of doing things in smaller ways, so specific support groups or smaller organizations like that. But we are the admins on those accounts as well, just so we can kind of maintain and know what's going on and help build momentum from that.
I would say the same thing, and just to go in a different vein and maybe give some takeaways, I would also, I guess I would recommend, if you do have multiple brands or if you do have multiple pages, to get together on the same page and to share your editorial calendars with one another. So if you have an event that's going on, then you would, well, for instance, for this event, we made sure that everybody knew what we were going to be tweeting and posting on Facebook, so all 3 organizations could cross-promote and get the biggest bang for your buck. That's when things go viral. So if you had one organization or brand that's tweeting or posting on one particular subject, and the other could have leveraged, you just miss opportunities that way if you're not communicating with one another. It's funny how sometimes so many communicators can miscommunicate, but it's really, really important to make sure. And then another, really quickly, it's tough when you're communicating for a brand to write months and months and years on end about the same thing over and over again. And if you're a writer, you know that there's block and there's wear out, and things can happen to where, you know, you can only say so much about your one given topic. And so there's a lot of value in switching writers midstream and giving writers relief over a course of time. And the key to doing something like that is to have the same editor all the time. So it's very similar, and you know, you want to keep voice and tone the same throughout. It's really important to give your writers some relief, but always make sure that you've got at least one person who maintains editing at all times.
So we have a lot of people that contribute to our Facebook page, and what we do is mainly people send me posts that they would like us to post or whatever. We kind of look at it to see what goes along with our strategy and what fits in with that. Once we've determined that, then we'll post it or whatever. But I'd say, honestly, the thing that I love the best, I love when our students contribute, because I love retweeting what our students are saying about our university, because I think that's the best thing to help us build our brand, because, you know, I get paid to promote ETSU. And so these students don't. They are paying to come to college and be here and live and everything. And so what they have to say is much more valuable than anything I could possibly say. So I'd say they're probably our best contributors. And I would say that for a lot of businesses, that your customers, anytime that they're, you know, mentioning your brand or talking about your brand, those are your best contributors, and really reaching out to them. And, you know, anytime I see a student that posts, hey, I got accepted to this school, and ETSU, I always try to get back to them and say, hey, we'd love to have you at ETSU. Take the time, come visit our campus. And so to me, that's priceless, really.
Okay, I want to honor everyone's lunch hour here, and just to quickly summarize what these fabulous panelists have talked about. We talked about no more anonymity in newspapers. That was a very interesting point. Josh talked about wrestling with the personal brand versus the brand that's out there, and the fact that you're never really off in what you do. Eric and Rachel talked about the importance of having a strategy, a clear-cut strategy, that there's no gray areas in what they're doing. Rachel also touched on the importance of return on investment and measuring as part of that strategy. Jennifer just now especially hit on the branding aspect, and also how social media is being used at the university to handle emergencies. So if I could have the door prize ladies come back up here, because we have some more fabulous door prizes to hand out. We also have sheets on your table with QR codes. Please scan the QR code to get the survey. Or if you don't have a smartphone, just fill out the paper survey, because we're very interested in hearing if you would like to do something like this again. And now I'd like to ask you to please join me in thanking this fantastic panel. That was really exceptional. I've had the privilege of going to some of these in larger cities, and you guys are right up there with them, no question. It was fantastic, very professional. Also, I would like to at least personally thank the venue, Cranberries, Jacob Kane. Jacob did the logo and the brochure for this design. He did a fabulous job. Christian Schmidt did the website. Mountain States Health Alliance, printing, Wellmont Health System, the table arrangements. Eastman Chemical brought us this stage. They said, these guys need to be up on stage, and they did. Then, once again, the committee was Drew Beamer, Rachel Kane, Deborah Lowry, myself, Christian Schmidt, and Jim Wozniak. So how about one round of applause for all these folks? And Sarah, are you ready with the door prizes? I'll go ahead and turn this back to Sarah Kinsler.
All right, guys, let's get those programs back out again. Sorry. All right, if you have a C on the back of your program, Mountain State Alliance are giving computer cases. Keep those hands up, guys. Any others, guys? Any other C's? Okay. All right, if you have a P on your program, Wellmont Health Systems has donated a portfolio. Any P's? Going once. All right, moving along. If you have a F on your program, raise your hand.
Lindsay,
All right, from Wellmont Health Systems, flash drives.
yes, it's the shape.
Actually, I'll make them middle
All right, if you have a CB on your program, raise your hand. All right, you get a Cranberries gift card. All right, and our last one, if you have a SB on the back of your program. All right, you get a Starbucks gift card.
Enjoy that Starbucks gift card, as Mark Mel purchased it. I just want to thank everyone very much for coming. The panelists are up here if you have additional questions of them. Thanks especially to all the students. Dr. Marshall pointed out there's a lot of students from several colleges and universities here, so thanks to all the students for coming and participating, and all the professionals. Thank you.